Welcome into a Clippers Talk Live. Once again, I'm doing shows pretty much every day now. I know I said once the season started, October 23rd, I would start doing shows every day. I might just start because the preseason has started. We're 2 games in. We got 3 more. Tomorrow, Clippers in Seattle taking on not the Supersonics, the Portland Trail Blazers. That makes sense. Supersonics will come back eventually. Hashtag SonicsGate. I'm Adam Osland. It is Clippers Talk Live. If you can hear me, get in the chat and let me know. I always appreciate that. Going to update you here on Kawhi Leonard, what James Harden said today at practice regarding the offense, and Norman Powell. Found out something about him earlier today. The main focus, Kawhi. We'll start with that, because I want to clear a few things up and also let you know where his status currently is, as Coach Lue gave us a bit of an update earlier today, or a non-update update, some may refer to it as. I thought there was some interesting stuff coming out of what happened in San Diego Tuesday night. Pre-game, actually. Coach Lue said something regarding Kawhi's health. Mark Jag is here. I guess he can hear me. Can we sign Danilo Gallinari? Sure. He's 36 now, I want to say. Yes, he is. Just turned 36. Didn't seem that effective last season in Milwaukee in 17 games he played. He's done his ACL twice, guys. So he's kind of a defensive liability. And last season, he only shot 17% from 3. I love Gallo. I think him being the savior at the power forward position, I'm not so sure about that. I would probably lean Crowder before him if I was going to sign one of these guys. I'm not sure how close the Clippers are currently to that first apron, which they have to be under. That's something Lucas Hahn. Damn it. Lucas Hahn would know. Bastian Schweinsteiger said, shall we revisit the Kai Jones backup debate, Mr. Osland? No, I don't want to hear more about you trying to compare him to Daniel Gafford. It was an awful one, and you probably shouldn't say that casual stuff out loud. JMI1324 says, what's your thoughts on the Legion Hoops page? He has a nasty agenda about Kawhi. I don't know if I follow it. I think I do. I'm not too certain about that. I ain't got a nasty agenda. My agenda is look for the truth and try to figure out whether or not Kawhi is going to be available opening night. That is the premise, really, of this episode. And we'll work through it together. I got about an hour with you guys here. And if you missed anything yesterday, Lob Murray was on with me for a little bit. He talked about Kawhi Leonard, what he meant over the weekend. Bastian Schweinsteiger said, fair play, Mr. Osland. You say that like, some supervillain or something like that. Or you are, one or the other. Mr. Osland. Mr. Smith. What am I thinking of? Mr. Anderson from The Matrix. I want to get into this, and you guys can reply, and I'll go into some tangents depending on what the questions are. But maybe talk amongst yourselves a little bit in here while I give you the history of what has occurred over the past season with Kawhi Leonard and see if we can connect any dots here. Our friend from Japan believes Norman Powell caught a cold. We don't know that. Here's what we know with Norman Powell. According to Joey Lynn, and I saw the videotape, so yeah, it's true. Ty Lue was asked about a new starting lineup for the next preseason game, as there have been 2 so far, 2 separate games, 2 different starting lineups. He said it depends on how Norman Powell is feeling. I asked if Norm is dealing with something, and Ty Lue said yes. I asked what it was. This is Joey Lynn, and Ty Lue said he can't remember. The classic Coach Lue evading questions, saying he can't remember. M7MD Boy says Harden's carry job at 35 years old will go to vain unless Zubats and Derek and Mann and Powell play amazing this year. Feel like those 4 have lots of potential. They do, and a big opportunity. Jeffrey Beltran is saying, Adam. So I appreciate all you guys getting in here. People are inferring that maybe Norman Powell's sick. Didn't seem to suffer an injury the other night in the game in San Diego, back in his old stomping grounds when they were taking on the Brooklyn Nets. He looked pretty good out there overall. He was one of the few guys that could hit free throws with that difficult backdrop, I guess, unusual one at least for a basketball game. But there was something else Coach Lue said earlier that night regarding Kawhi Leonard, and I have the quote. I pulled it off the video I recorded as I was there in San Diego. Beautiful new arena. The Clippers have a few of them now. Front Wave Arena in San Diego and Oceanside, to be more specific. Now, I will say this. I've had a pretty decent track record when it comes to guessing right on these things. When it comes to Kawhi, it's not because I know more than anyone else. He's very private. I don't know anything more than you guys do with the news that's out there. It's because I'm not a doomer. And I'm also not a wishful thinker. I'm rooting for the truth. I'm trying to find it. I want to know what's going on regardless of what I'd like to happen. I look for the most realistic scenario, and I try to remove as much bias as possible and just follow the evidence, no matter where it could lead. And whatever trails of truth nuggets that get dropped along the way, I look for those crumbs. And once we're out of them, then it comes down to educated guesses. There's a lot of that going on right now with Kawhi Leonard. And I'll give you some of the evidence we do have and some of those crumbs coming up here. But there have been many wishful thinkers. I don't want to mention them by name. I probably have hit them up before on X, on Twitter. You know who you are. That were telling me, oh, you're wrong, Adam. When I was saying there could be a real issue here going on before he didn't play game one against the Dallas Mavericks in that first round series, going back to April. I try to point out that there should be concern because he missed a game against the Denver Nuggets that was consequential late in the regular season standings-wise. I don't think it ended up having any real playoff implications. The Clippers won the game anyways, and they still finished behind Denver anyways. But at that time, it was a big game, and he didn't play. He wouldn't have missed that game if there wasn't a real issue going on. Initially, it was soreness. That's what we heard. Now, even when we heard there was no structural damage, I still had concerns because it went from soreness to being swollen. And for it to be swollen, well, not a doctor. That doesn't seem to be normal. Something's going on there. I was far from surprised when I heard there was a cleanup in May, which just came out over the last couple of weeks. I had Dr. Shapp on the show from the Lob the Jam, the podcast. He predicted that at the time. Of course, with all that swelling going on that they couldn't get under control, they were going to go in there and see what was happening. Now, when he was sent home from Team USA, before we knew about the procedure, I kept bringing up how when he got to camp, Kawhi said he had a turning point a couple weeks before. I said, oh, so mid-June, about when they got to camp, later in June, I should say, that's over 2 months after the swelling started, and he had just finally had a turning point about 2 months afterwards. That was interesting to me. Then the day before he was sent home by Team USA, Kawhi used this terminology talking about his knee, saying it was in a neutral state. I said, that's interesting. Kind of wonder if that was a red flag for Team USA, him using those words, and maybe that spooked them and they just didn't want to see if he was going to be able to make it through the entire campaign. Wish he was able to play. It was unfortunate. Didn't happen. Then we get to the Lawrence Frank presser just about a couple of weeks ago, a week before media day, or 6 days before it, where he said this regarding Kawhi Leonard. The swelling is almost gone. It made it known he wasn't 100% yet. Then we got that Shams bomb that the procedure happened in May. We don't know when in May, but in May. So therefore, we're at least 4 months removed from the procedure, and the swelling is still almost gone. Where then we would get to hear 5 days later at media day, after hearing from Lawrence Frank, we got to hear from the horse's mouth and Kawhi Leonard. And Young Masuk was asking him something very interesting. If he's going to have to deal with this as his career goes on, the inflammation possibly popping up at any time. Kawhi said, quote, yeah, I mean, it can get that way, but there's not really we got a sense of how we did get to that point. So like I said, there's things we can do to prolong, me playing throughout the season. He said leading up to the Olympics, everything was okay. After the Olympics, everything was great. And then, quote, like I said, we want to make sure we cut things back. We did things leading up to that point. I was doing everything. And then we took a step back and wanted to make sure, like I said, I'm ready for the season and just to be able to last in those important moments for myself, the fans, and the Clippers. Then we get the presser just about a week ago, preseason game number 1 in Honolulu. Last Saturday, Young Masuk asked him, do you want to play in a preseason game before trying to play in the season opener, or does that matter, or do you think you could just go into the season without any preseason action? Kawhi says, quote, there's always a build-up to playing a game, so especially in the position I'm in. Then Coach Lue, and I don't know how many guys reported this, but I have it on video. I was at the pregame presser for the game against the Brooklyn Nets in San Diego on Tuesday night. He was asked about Kawhi, and he said this, quote, the biggest thing for us is making sure we do right by Kawhi. Not let him hurt himself trying to get back early. We can't skip steps. We have to follow the process. Our medical staff is one of the best in the league. So we got to make sure we're checking every box. We're doing everything the right way before we get him on the floor. So if that's him being pissed off at us because we're protecting him, then so be it. Then today we hear at practice, this came from Joey Lynn. They asked him about Kawhi's status. I think it was Brad Turner who asked it. He said he's still rehabbing his knee. And then when he was asked if he will play in the season opener, he said he's not sure. Kawhi, we also found out, has not practiced yet with the Clippers. Still rehabbing his knee. The season opener is less than 2 weeks away. So I go back to a couple of things here as I'm trying to put the pieces of this puzzle together. Asked him last Saturday, first preseason game in Honolulu, about if you want to play in the preseason game before playing in an opener. And Kawhi said, quote, there's always a buildup to playing a game, especially in the position I'm in. He hasn't practiced yet. He's still rehabbing the knee. We don't know all the steps and all the boxes that would have to be checked before playing in that opener. But I did make this point on Twitter at FollowAdamA. It would go a long way if we saw Kawhi play in a preseason game because that would mean he already had cleared some other hurdles along the way. But I would assume he would do some practice before then. It wouldn't just be rehab. I would assume there would be some live 5-on-5 before then at practice, and then a preseason game. That's where I'm at. It's difficult to discern. It's Kawhi. I had Miriam Swanson on with me from the OC Register earlier this week. She said, yeah, of course, it's been very frustrating covering him, trying to get a clear picture. He's not the only player that you don't have a clear picture on. And I think a lot of this is simply because he can't know for sure because he doesn't know how his knee is going to respond. The doctors can't know for sure. So therefore, he has to go through this process. And along the way, we're hoping he gets to check those boxes. He does this. Knee responds well enough. He can move on to the next activity. And eventually, he can get to practice with the team. Then, if that happens soon enough, can he play in a preseason game? As there's still 3 more. Tomorrow, Monday, and I think next Thursday. The last 2 being an Intuit Dome. I don't know how encouraging or discouraging you guys take this stuff, hearing that he hasn't practiced yet with the team, that he's still rehabbing the knee. I do think this part of it is encouraging. When Kawhi was talking about at media day leading up to the Olympics, everything was great. And right afterwards, everything was great. And he said, quote, like I said, we want to make sure we cut things back. We did things leading up to that point that I was doing everything. And then we took a step back and wanted to make sure, like I said, I'm ready for the season and just be able to last in those important moments. That is encouraging to me. The fact that Coach Lue was talking about before we put him on the floor, having to check all those boxes and do right by Kawhi, even if that means, quote, him being pissed off at us because we're protecting him, then so be it, unquote. That, to me, makes me believe that some of this is being overly cautious, as they should be. I think they were always cautious the last couple of years. This may be an even extreme version of that, considering what has occurred. 4 years straight, not able to start or complete a playoff run. And even after playing 68 games last season, then the swelling started. They couldn't get it under control. He tried to play in 2 playoff games. The first one, he looked okay. And I said, hey, I'm not worried about him trying to play in a game. I'm worried about how his knee responds afterwards. Didn't respond well. Kawhi even said that after game 3, where he looked much worse movement-wise than game 2. That will also be something I'm going to be watching. Do I think he'll likely be playing within the first 2 weeks of the regular season? Probably. But how does he respond after playing in an NBA game, which is just a different level? That's something everyone, I think, is going to be monitoring at this point. All right, Jonathan Ing says, it is concerning that Kawhi's knee isn't ready to go considering how long it has been since the scope. If the scope happened in May, as Shamshrania said, we're talking about over 4 months, and the swelling is almost gone. Timothy Albueno says, doesn't it feel like today's news is non-news? I was under the impression that he was going to that he wasn't going to practice for a while and just focus on strengthening his knee. True, but I'm saying, what are the chances he's going to play opening night if we're less than 2 weeks away and he's not practicing and he's still doing those drills that they talked about the week before media day with Lawrence Frank? Jonathan Ing says, what makes no sense is if that Chinese social media post knew something we don't. I'm not even going to dignify that with a response. We don't really know anything if that was accurate or not. Jay, I don't even care about Kawhi. I look at this team as Harden, as our pure leader, and we have what we have. If Kawhi heals enough to play eventually, great. If not, it is what it is. I'm a Clippers fan. Resigned to his fate right now, I guess. I understand that point of view. I understand the point of view of I'll believe it when I see it. I'll just wait for him to get on the court, and we'll go from there. That can make sense to me because we're not going to get a lot again because I think Kawhi can't know how his knee's going to respond yet. So projecting and trying to figure out and read the tea leaves, as I'm definitely doing here some, based upon quotes and the actual evidence we do have, that is all public. I guess right now it's how quickly can he get to practice? And then from practice, can he get to a preseason game in time by the end of next week when the final preseason game is? If he doesn't play a preseason game, is he going to be able to go in game 1? I don't know. Again, I go back to Kawhi saying, quote, there's always a buildup to playing a game, especially in the position I'm in. So it would be obviously a great sign if he can go in a preseason game. If he doesn't, does that mean conclusively he can't play in game 1? No. But I would think if he's still not practicing at that point, then people are going to draw a conclusion from that and think, okay, He's probably not going to be able to go in game one if he's not practicing with the team or doing live 5-on-5 stuff, contact, all that. That's part of, you would assume, those steps and checking boxes. Mark Jag says, just waiting for the announcement that Kawhi will miss significant time. Hopefully the Thunder don't end up with Cooper Flagg with our pick. Well, they're not going to get the number one pick in the draft because they're probably going to win 60 games. So, yeah, that's a little bit of a doomer comment. Jonathan Ing, how much do you think Kawhi being unavailable now will affect the psyche of the rest of the team and how they play? They may have a hard time reintegrating him if he's out the first month or longer. I don't think they're going to have much of a difficult time once he's available, getting him in there. Like, you always want Kawhi. He's not going to hold you back. I didn't feel like that in game 2, like people were saying in the playoffs. It's like, oh, should they bring him back? They won game 1 without him. Did he hurt him in game 2? It's like, no, it's a series. They weren't going to sweep Dallas if they just didn't play Kawhi. And they had a great opportunity. They probably should have won game 2. Luka ended up going off at the very end. I certainly am not putting that game on Kawhi. If you can get Kawhi on the court, he's helping. A friend from Japan says, I don't know Kawhi's status, but it doesn't matter if he doesn't make it in time. Important thing is we are ready for play-in time. Sure, that is the most important thing, to have him ready and healthy for the playoffs. But with how competitive the West is, and look, there's going to be injuries. I mean, Triple J has had one. Ja Morant turned his ankle. Like, unfortunately, it's part of the game. We know that all too well. And we can talk about all these teams being healthy right now, or for the most part in the West, and saying, oh, look how stacked it is. Things will change. Things will change, unfortunately. I still think it's competitive enough, because I can make an argument for most teams in the West getting better. Most. Not all, but most. A lot of the young teams from last season, when you're talking about Houston, they should only get better. If they have an injury, I'm not going to predict that. Okay, that could upend my prediction. But outside of injuries, when you look at these teams, like the Spurs, watching Wemby last night, catching a lob from CP3, having just a ridiculous two-handed windmill dunk from a 7'4" guy. It was wild to see. But Oklahoma City is going to get better. They were just number 1 in the West. They added Isaiah Hartenstein. They added Alex Caruso. They have young guys internally that are going to get better. Denver, maybe they take a slight step back. But as long as Jokic is that workhorse for them, regardless of Jamal Murray, they're still going to be really good. I do have some concerns about Jamal Murray with how he looked against Canada. Minnesota has young guys who are going to get better. Guys, Anthony Edwards is still really young, not that close to his prime yet. He's 23, likely to get better. Maybe you didn't like the trade. Maybe you did. I don't think it makes a significant difference in the standings. They were 3rd last season. They will be going for a top 3 seed this year. Dante DiVincenzo will help them. I'm a big Naz Reid fan. Opening up more minutes for him is good. We'll see what they do with Julius Randle. The Clippers, meanwhile, who are 4th, most teams, or most analysts, I should say, I don't know how the teams feel about it, look at them as the team is going to take a significant step back. They lost an all-star. Only them and the Minnesota Timberwolves did. And to be fair, they got one back, you could say, in Julius Randle, even with losing Cat. I don't know how he's going to fit there. I think he's a very specific type of player. But they find a way to make him work. He'll be in decent shape. I know I think Chris Finch worked with him in New Orleans. The Dallas Mavericks, they could get better. They lost Derrick Jones Jr. They brought in Klay Thompson. They were a 5 seed. And the reason I say they could get better is they brought in Gafford and PJ Washington with 30 games left in the season. Now they're going to have them in training camp and going into the year. There's a good argument they're going to be better. Phoenix Suns, I don't know why they couldn't get better at this point. Health, that is a real concern. I say I don't want to project injuries, but when you're dealing with older guys, it's easier to say, yeah, guys are going to miss some time here and there. Kevin Durant has been injury prone. I think Kawhi has played more games than him since 2019. You can say Bradley Beal's been injury prone now. Devin Booker has been a little bit banged up here and there now. And defensively, I don't know. I know they brought in Mason Plumlee, and I saw him last season, and he really struggled. Maybe it was the knee injury he faced from Julius Randle and the New York Knicks that he was going through, and that will change. But I think they still ended up like 14th or somewhere there, middle of the pack defensively with Vogel last year. We'll see. They got Mike Budenholzer, and he's been a good regular season coach. The Lakers, they have young guys who can get better. Austin Reeves can get better. Rui Hachimura can get better. I think they can be 5 games better just from JJ Redick, honestly. They can be a 50-win team just from that. Now, you can make the argument they're not going to get 70 games from AD this year, most likely. They're not going to get 70 games from LeBron this year like they got last year, most likely. They actually had a pretty good bill of health with their 2 top guys, and Darvin Ham, I do believe, did not do a very good job optimizing lineups and figuring out who the best 5 are. That's a pretty important thing for a head coach. The Pelicans, interesting. DeJounte Murray. They bring him in. Zion, can they get 65 games from him this year? Brandon Ingram, is he going to be traded? Can they make it work? Him and CJ McCollum out there still. But they can make the argument that they get better health from Zion. They will be better than the 8th spot. The Sacramento Kings lost 2 more games last year than they lost the year before. And they went from 3rd in the West to 9th. They went from 48 wins to 46 wins, and it dropped them from 3rd in the West to 9th. They can be better. They got DeMar DeRozan. Did he miss a shot the other night in the preseason in his first game? They have young guys still that are getting better. That's a good team. I don't expect them to be 9th. Golden State Warriors, that's the one I'm like, yeah, they could be worse. They won 46 games. They were 10th. They barely made it in. They could be worse. They could be about the same. They could be slightly better, but I don't see it being significant. Houston Rockets, meanwhile, won 41 games. I think they can win 45 this year. So many young guys are going to improve. The Utah Jazz, they have no reason to really tank now because Lauri Markkanen, he can't be traded this year. That's over with. So they might as well play hard and not just get off to a hot start and then tail off. Memphis is the big one, guys. The last 2 years they were healthy. They were the 2 seed and the 3 seed in the West. Last 2 years they were relatively healthy. Triple J is already hurt, okay, but John Morant, the ankle thing doesn't seem to be serious. They could be a top 5 team in the West if they're healthy. San Antonio, they won 22 games. They could win 35, maybe more. Maybe Wemby. Like, they were winning Wemby's minutes often. If they just play him real minutes this year and not baby him, wow, that's the floor raiser right there. Victor Wembanyama last season, guys, was playing 29 minutes per game and still getting 21, 11, and almost 4 blocks. His per 36 stats, 26, 13, and over 4 blocks per game and almost 5 assists. Crazy. He's that special. Bastian Schweinsteiger says, give me the 8th seed with James Edward Harden and Kawhi Anthony Leonard healthy, and let's roll the dice. Are you with me, Mr. Osland? Sure. Those 2 guys healthy, that's scary. Being in the play-in, also scary. Not a lot of room for error there. But if you're the 8th seed, it's at least double elimination. Jay, I'm excited about the unknowns, though. The youth can be exciting and surprising. Yes, Jordan Miller, my player to watch the other night, performed. Looked good. Caleb Bergerson said, what's up, Adam? This might be Kawhi's season with least games played in a season. To manage the knee, 20 to 30 games he will play, it looks like. Well, I don't know if you knew this, but Kawhi missed an entire season before with the Clippers coming off the ACL. And then he had a season where I think he played 8 games with the San Antonio Spurs. 9 games, when he was coming back from the tendinopathy. So no 20 to 30 games, if you're saying with the Clippers, that would not be the fewest amount of games he's played in a season. I'm hoping I'd sign up for 55 plus right now, honestly. Jonathan Ing says there's legit 10 or 11 teams in the West fighting for those 8 playoff spots. Facts. I just went over it. Jay says something unproductive. Nas Reed on the Clippers would be awesome. He always kills us. Yeah, he kills a lot of teams, and they're not giving him up. Thanks for bringing it up, though. Jonathan Ing, I think the Wolves got worse with Cat, the Randall trade, but they are still good enough to be in playoff. Man, they're not just playoff contention. They're still good enough to be a top 3 seed in the West. They're going to have a top 10 defense at worst. They were the number 1 defense last season by a lot. I don't think all that was because of Karl Anthony Towns. It's the Rudy Gobert effect. You have him, you're a top 10 defense in the regular season. Like saying they're good enough to be in a playoff contention is underestimating just how good they're still going to be. I don't think they're going to be worse than 4th in the West, the Wolves. I think at worst. Now, if there's injuries, okay. But based on the talent on paper, I mean, Anthony Edwards is going to be better this season, guys. There's no reason he won't be better. Coming off his first real taste of the playoffs and a big run where everybody was talking about him being the best player in the league now. He averaged 26 last year. Put him at 28 this year, points per game. His three-point shooting can still improve. His playmaking can still improve. God, even though he still averaged 5 assists per game last season, I didn't know it was that good. The playoffs at times, though, I thought it left something to be desired, but like, come on. The Wolves are going to be really good. Jonathan Ing says the Clippers have a lower floor than many, if not most, of the teams in the West. This I agree with. The bottom could fall out if things don't go their way. If James Harden can't stay healthy along with Kawhi Leonard, then I don't know what we're talking about. I don't know what we're talking about. Saying the West was very mid a couple of years ago when the Kings were 3rd. The West is never mid, okay? Like, Phoenix was still good, and they brought in KD. The Clippers were still good, even though they were a mess at times with figuring things out with Russ, and then Paul George went down. Golden State was coming off winning the championship the year before. Memphis was really good that year, winning 51 games, and the Kings were really good. Like, defensively, they still have their issues, but offensively, they can easily be a top 5 offense. The Lakers, I think, when healthy, are much better than their record was that season. They got to the Western Conference Finals. Like, come on. The West is not the last time the West was mid was like, God, you'd have to go back to the 90s. Maybe. Spare me. Caleb Bergeson says, my Lakers will be better. Yes, I think LeBron will play 55 to 60 games and AD plays 60 to 65 games. I think the Warriors will be better if they shoot threes like they did last night. Yeah, 28 threes. I think it was 28. Correct me if I'm wrong. It was the most threes they've ever hit in a game, but it was a preseason game, which is saying something for the Golden State Warriors, who revolutionized three-point shooting. But you're saying your Lakers are going to be better, but LeBron is only going to play 55 to 60 games as opposed to 70 plus like he played this season. Same with AD, 60 to 65 instead of the 70 plus he played this season. So if you're saying those guys play less games, even though I think they have a much better head coach, I know JJ Redick hasn't coached before. Yeah, well, I think he's a much better head coach already than Darvin Ham. I'm a fan of his. He's going to optimize things. He has them shooting more three-pointers. He is dragging them into the 21st century of basketball. They're going to be better. They're going to win more on the margins with stuff. But I do think LeBron and AD both play less the games than last season. LeBron's going to turn 40 in December. That was fluky to have injury-prone player and a player that old and LeBron play that many games. They didn't take advantage of it. So could it be offset by the fact that they have a better head coach? I don't know. They could end up around the same spot. I think Their ceiling is probably the 5 seed in the West. Maybe if everything broke their way, a 4 spot. But the Kenny GM is asking about what happened with Norm. Well, Ty Lue was asked about a new starting lineup for Game 3 of the preseason tomorrow night after seeing 2 different starting lineups in the first 2 games. He said it depends on how Norman Powell is feeling. Joey Lynn asked if Norm is dealing with something. Coach Lue said yes, but he wouldn't divulge what it was. He said he could not remember. We don't know. Some people are assuming he's sick. Jonathan Ing says, when I say the Wolves got worse, it is in relation to OKC getting better. Maybe the Suns improving. That's not what you said, dude. That's not what you said, dude. You said still good enough to be in playoff contention. In playoff contention? My guy, they're in top 3 contention, not playoff contention. Ray JNT says, late arrival, so I'll play catch up. No Kawhi, no problem. Clips will be driven by the power of friendship. That is very optimistic and sanguine. Bastian Schweinsteiger said, Minnesota will fall off this year. They're simply due to regress. They were a horrible offense last year and got even worse with acquiring Randall. They weren't horrible. They were 17th. They were also had the best defense in the league. I don't think they're going to be worse than a top 5 defense this year. I think they can be better offensively. So they could end up with the same net rating or better. And yeah, I don't know what you guys are smoking. They're going to be a top 3 seed. I don't know if it's legal there in Minnesota. But if they're healthy, they're likely going to be a top 3 seed in the West. Ray J says, Pelicans having Herb Jones as their center won't bode well for them either. I mean, I think at worst they can play Zion there. No, they have guys. They have Daniel Tice that they picked up. I'm trying to think. And by the way, I like Herb Jones a lot. And if they're playing 5 out, yeah, some teams will punish them for going small, but are you really small if you have Zion Williamson? Are you really? And I guess you can't play 5 out, though, with him. He's not that shooter. Caleb Bergeson said JJ is going to be the Eric Spoelstra of the Lakers coach, hopefully. This Lakers fan in here is getting a lot of wind in his jaws, guys. Caleb Bergeson. But I appreciate anybody here in the chat. It's all good. Stop it. Jonathan trying to walk this back. Playoff contention to me means they're getting one of the top 6 spots. Contention means they're contending for one of the top 6 spots. I'm saying they're contending for one of the top 3 spots. You stepped in it, my guy. You put down the rake. You stepped in it. I'm sorry. I got to be honest in here. I got to keep it real. I ain't going to let anybody twist out of it. This Clippers team, though, if you didn't hear my thoughts on Kawhi after, as we do a little bit of a reset here, Coach Lue said earlier today that Kawhi is still not practicing. Would have been news if he was, I suppose. That's fair. So he's still rehabbing the knee. Was asked if he's playing in the season opener. Coach Lue said, being coy with it, he's not sure. I think that's actually not even being coy. I think that's just facts. He's not sure. But again, for him to get there, there is a process. There are steps. He's not skipping any. They got to check every box. My guess is he's going through drills. Okay, how does his knee respond to this drill? Then this drill. Okay, now can you get to a point of practice? Now can you do contact practice? Now can you play in a preseason game? Okay, he played in a preseason game and he's still feeling good. Now he can play in a regular season game. That's my guess. If he doesn't make it in time to have a chance to play in a preseason game, then he'd probably have to be doing a lot of live stuff in practice first. Those are my best guesses in this situation. I do not want to act like I have any more information than any of you guys. As I said earlier, I went through a bunch of quotes, a bunch of them. So all the evidence we do have, the truth about Kawhi that we do have out there. And again, it's fluid because they have to see how his knee responds. If you're upset with saying, oh, why aren't they being more transparent? I don't know what else you can ask for. They don't know how his knee's going to respond to the drills. Kawhi doesn't know. That's what we don't know. Nobody can know these things. It is the human body. Evil Bot says, hi, chat. Are you all ready for tomorrow's game? I'm so anxious. Big. Oh, he's not talking about Clippers preseason. He's talking about the Dodger game, most likely. Unless he really thinks there are ramifications coming out of this Clippers game. Can Kai Jones take away Zubac's starting job? Oh, God, there were people who really said that. Kai Jones is the backup center currently. Coach Lue made that clear earlier today, was asked about Mo Bamba. And it did sound like Mo Bamba can miss all preseason and could still play opening night. But he's trying to get right. He's had a knee issue. Caleb Bergeson says, I am rooting for the Clippers this year, and I will be watching lots of your channel and listening to lots of Clippers talk and your episodes on Spotify. This is my kind of Laker fan. We don't always get along. This is one of the exceptions. One of my favorite Laker fans here. Gregory says, how big of a possibility that this Clippers team can be the Timberwolves of last season? High-seeded team, top 8 defense, mid-offensively, it can be a sneaky pick to compete for the West. This is something Carlo Jimenez has brought up, and we've discussed it a little bit, and I think it's a great point, salient point, if VTB was here. Because I don't know, and I've said this, if the Clippers can really be a top 5 defense. I'm not saying they can't. I'm simply saying if Kawhi is not available and misses 20 to 30 games, I don't know if that's going to happen. Let's just say he misses all the back-to-back, so he's at 66 games. He misses 16 games. That might be best case scenario. Under those circumstances, with that caveat, can they still be a top 5 defense with missing a former defensive player of the year twice over? I don't know. I love the guys they brought in. I think they have to be a top 10 defense. I think they need to be top 8 to weather the storm of scoring droughts that are going to happen. A storm, but also droughts. Terrible analogy, Adam. Oxymoronish. I think they need to be a top 8 defense and a top 12 to 13 offense. Then you get a top 10 net rating still, and you're in the mix for the 6th seed and trying to stay out of the play-in. That's where I'm at. But Minnesota, I don't think people understand. People saying they're going to regress this season like Bastian Schweinsteiger. No, here's what you don't understand. Once again, they weren't just the best defensive team. They were the best defensive team by over 2 points per 100 possessions by a significant margin to the next best defensive team in the West. Not in the West, in the NBA, I should say. They were first in defensive rating at 108.4. Boston was second at 110.6. They had distance between them. A lot of distance. Like, look at 2 and 3. Boston's at 110.6. The third best defensive team, Orlando, was at 110.8. Meanwhile, Minnesota's not 0.2 of a point better, 2 points better defensively per 100 possessions. That is significant. They could have slippage there and still easily be a top 5 defense. And I think they will be. You look at the track record of Rudy Gobert, regular season, those teams are always a top 10 defense. So I think you're getting your hopes up a little bit if you're saying, can they be the Timberwolves of this season? I'm not saying it's out of the realm of possibility. But the Timberwolves finished 3rd in the West. I think the Clippers, at best, are 5 or 6 in the West this year, even if their defense is top 8, which I think is more realistic. You guys got to understand things. Like, that is, their defensive rating was off the charts. Did you watch the 3 regular season games against Minnesota? I think they have to play them 4 times this year on the schedule. Like, they are really good. And I don't think losing Karl-Anthony Towns is going to have them going from the number 1 defense by a lot to all of a sudden out of the top 10. No, I don't. Timothy Albueno says, I'm curious if part of the load management for Kawhi will be that he doesn't even practice all year, plus no back-to-backs. That's interesting. Teams don't typically practice a ton during the year anyways anymore, because so few days off, and People don't want to hear this, but they think basketball was always more physical in the 90s. There's actually way more movement in the half court set now than in the 90s. There's far more explosive plays, and guys have more wear and tear before they get in the league because they're playing year round AAU basketball, youth sports. It's all specialized. That's why you see way more injuries because they're playing specialized sports year round at a very, very young age because they're lottery tickets. You make it to the league. If you're the 0.0001% of the population in the NBA, it means everything. Will Kawhi be playing? Guys, it all depends on how the knee responds. Practices, they do a lot of walkthrough stuff. Film. Yawning Tears said, could there ever be a Twin Tower bench version of what Minnie did last year with one center that can shoot threes with Kai and Bamba? Kai hasn't proven anything, guys. I hate to break it to you. At the NBA level, Kai Jones has not proven anything. He's on an Exhibit 10 contract trying to make the team. I think he's Exhibit 10. It's at least a non-guaranteed contract. Trying to make the team and be the third-string center. Right now, though, Coach Lue said, yeah, he's the backup center. That's obvious. We've seen the first 2 games. They don't have Mo Bamba. He did not say he's competing with Mo Bamba for backup center. I know a lot of you have been getting wild with your illusions of grandeur when it comes to Kai Jones, but I hate to break it to you. He has a lot to learn at the NBA level. I am proud of the development from game 1 to game 2 in the preseason and how well he has taken the coaching. And I love the guy, and I'm rooting for him. I'm just not putting unrealistic expectations out there. That's what I don't like. You know, set people up to fail. Give false hope. I'm rooting hard, though, for Kai. And the 6 dunks he had against Brooklyn, it's all great. I would say look at the defensive play he made. He had a block early on and the offensive rebound, even though he turned it over after. That little stuff to me and some of the passes he made is much more important. We know he can dunk. Can you do the little things? Coach Lue had a talk with him at the half. Tuesday night in San Diego, Oceanside. Clippers taking on Brooklyn Nets from preseason game number 2. Coach Lue talked with him and basically said, just play free. Don't worry about making mistakes out there. He doesn't want guys looking over their shoulder. He wants them to be aggressive, to do what they do best. And it worked. Kai Jones was way better in the second half, way better than he was in preseason game number 1. Ray says the Herb Jones news came from Shams today. He's going to be their starting center. I guess I'll believe it when I see it. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked. I think they could play that way, honestly. Today's NBA, you can get away with that. Herb Jones, he is blocked. He has had a couple of the craziest blocks I've ever seen in my life when it comes to closing out on three-pointers. Caleb Bergeson said, Carlo Menes is my age, and he does great work on the radio when I listen to your games. Yes, he does. Facts. Sebastian Schweinsteiger said, I actually brought up this point initially in the Tomer episode, Mr. Osland. I floated the idea of this year's Clippers using the Mavs finals blueprint for success. Which point were you talking about? Reiterate. I'm getting lost. Jay, been watching too much Clippers talk. My wisdom tooth is coming out. Oh, thanks, Adam. Let's go Clippers. Finishing 6th through 8th. Calling it now. I think a lot of people would sign up for that. I don't think that's a bad call. I don't know what I had to do with your wisdom tooth. Is that because I'm giving so much knowledge? Is that a joke? I had mine pulled when I was like 14. I remember they said with the perk or whatever they gave me pills-wise afterwards, is your cheek are more full than a squirrel or somebody doing the hungry, what is the rabbit game with the marshmallow? And you're swollen up afterwards after the wisdom tooth, and you get all these meds they put you on. And they say, you know, for some people, if you have a milkshake afterwards, which is like the only thing you can have, it makes them throw up with these medicines, with this medicine, with the pills. And I happen to be one of them, unfortunately. The milkshake tasted good, but not coming back up afterwards. Sorry, TMI. That's my recollection of getting my wisdom teeth pulled. Jonathan Ing says, many won't be worse than 6. Well, no. But part of their success was them being a hard matchup with their Twin Towers. Many teams struggled to match up with them. It was what made them unique. Guess what? If they play Naz Reid at the 4 next to Rudy Gobert, they're going to be fine and still big. If they play Julius Randle, they're going to be big still in this NBA next to Rudy Gobert. Like, he says, even with Rudy Gobert being an offensive liability, having 2 7-footers there makes a huge difference, especially with rebounding. Yes, Captain Obvious. Gregory, do you think we have enough offensively to get close to that level? Oh, to where Minnesota was 17th? Yes, I do. But remember, they were number 1 defensively by a wide margin. They were 17th offensively. I don't think the Clippers can get to being the number 1 defense. I think they're somewhere between 8 and 10 most likely, or 7 and 10, or 6 and 10. Therefore, they have to be better than 17th offensively where Minnesota was. I think they can be. I think they need to be 12 or 13th. I've been telling you guys for a while now, James Harden teams have never been worse than 12th offensively since he has led teams going back 12 years to when he first came to Houston. And on average, they're 5th. Now, he's 35. Got to take that into account. Does he have enough help around him if Kawhi's not available? I don't know. I think they're going to be somewhere between 10 and 14 on offense. Bastian Schweinsteiger says, can we refer to Kai Jones as Daniel Gafford Jr. from this point forward? He's making a joke. Don't worry, guys. That lunacy will not be tolerated here. Shanina Sheikh says, are you sure? You've been bashing the guy since he became A. Miller? Who are we talking about? Who? My guy Jordan Miller? Who are we talking about? Ray says, since today is the start of the WNBA Finals, I have a prediction that Ballmer and Halo Sports Entertainment will bring the sparks to the Intuit Dome. I don't know. Interesting prediction. Caleb Bergeson. Noah Eagle did a great job, too, when I listened to him call the games. Yes, he did, the young goat. Also, I appreciate you starting this channel no matter if you covered the Celtics or Los Angeles Lakers rivalry. Saying no matter what I was doing. Obviously not talking a ton of Lakers here, but I know the Lakers pretty damn well. Got to know your enemy. I study up on the rest of the NBA. Frank J., how about Intuit? What do you think? Is it best in the NBA? That new stadium should give us 10 to 20 more wins. Whoa. Nobody's getting 10 to 20 more wins because of their arena. Let's chill a little bit. Yes, there's no mid-afternoon starts. The Clippers will still have back-to-backs, though, 16 of them. Intuit Dome, here's my prediction. Intuit Dome, very quickly, because of the acoustics in there and the way it was structured with the wall and how it seats less intentionally, so the roof's not as high, so the sound doesn't have as many places to hide. It is going to be known as the loudest arena in the NBA. That's my prediction. Now, you have a lot to do with that. But from what I heard from the sound tests, with only 6,000 people in there and it getting to 110 decibels, well, 140, I think, is a jet engine. And 110 is really loud. That's what it used to be back at Arco Arena. And that was known as the loudest arena in the early 2000s. I was there for many of those games from Sacktown. 110 is loud, 6,000 people. There will be 3 times at full capacity that many people. That's why I'm saying I think it's going to be known as the loudest arena, and Clipper Nation is going to bring it. And you have to. Timothy Albueno said, Zoo is the key. He has to get to 32-plus minutes a night. Don't know if he can keep up the defensive intensity, but I don't think they have a choice. I hope they give him the chance. I'm going to make this point. Zoo at 80% or at 75%, even if he gets a little winded, is better than any of their backup center options. And that's how it would be for most teams. Zoo's that good. Guys, he just finished best in the league when it came to rim protection. He just finished second best when it came to pick and roll defense. Like, Zubats is him defensively. And he's always top 5 in rim protection every year. That's why he gets paid. That's why he got paid. And now we get to see, hopefully, more offense from him. Gregory says, well, I'm sold. Get lucky, 10 to 13 sweet spot offensively, and top 8 defensively. Knock on wood, Kawhi plays 50-plus games. I'm invested. A lot has to go right there. For those numbers to manifest themselves. Caleb Bergeson says, I know you a lot because of the Lakers and because of Fred Rogan. Do I have to thank Fred? Jonathan Ing, there are a ton of Warriors, Kings, Lakers fans in LA now. So if those fans go to our games, that could have an adverse effect. Yeah. But when the games get exciting, I expect Clipper Nation to be loud. Ray says Zoocoin is at an all-time high. Is that real? Is there a cryptocurrency for Visa Zubas? Jonathan Ing says, I was at a game against the Kings within the last couple of years. Heard a ton of Kings fans in the arena as well. I know. It's NorCal. It's proximity effect. I know. And a lot of people are going to want to be at this arena. It's not just going to be Clippers fans. It's the eighth wonder of the world. Or maybe that's Wemby. I don't know. But, guys, if 6,000 fans can create 110 decibels, well, even if only it's 75% full of Clippers fans, even at that, it should be freaking loud. And I expect it to be filled with Clippers fans at 99%, damn it. You guys got to be at Intuit Dome. You have to be there. Quentin Cornett says, you seem to be skeptical of Kai Jones. You said he wasn't ready to play NBA defense. Are you kidding me? So you're taking Mason Plumlee and Daniel Tice over him? You're an idiot. Wow. Casual alert just went off. I mean, you didn't have to call me an idiot. I guess you haven't watched much NBA. I guess you haven't watched much Kai Jones, but that's fair because he's only played about 600 minutes so far in the NBA. 613 to be exact. He's averaged a 2-2. He was on a bad team in Charlotte and couldn't get minutes. He started playing basketball at 15. I'm sorry you think that being a good athlete means you're a good basketball player. Those two things are separate. He has not proven to be a good basketball player yet. Those are the facts. He has not proven to have the defensive acumen of even Mason Plumlee or Daniel Tice. Those instincts that they have, he doesn't have them yet. I don't know if you knew this, but he doesn't. I'm sorry. I want Kai Jones to develop and progress. DeAndre Jordan had to learn a lot. He was an athlete. It took him years. It could take Kai Jones a long time. Kai Jones stands don't know ball. You don't know hoop. I'm a Kai Jones stan in a way. I just am realistic. I desperately want him to get the two-way spot. He is fighting for a two-way spot to make it in the league. Mason Plumlee and Daniel Tice are not fighting for a two-way spot. Do you understand? There's a difference. He hasn't proven anything yet. He's been out of position and his footwork is rough. I've watched him. I know ball a little bit. Anybody that does, it's a Rorschach test. I say it a lot. If you know a little bit of basketball, you'll know he's not extremely comfortable out there yet. Can he run? Can he jump? Yes. Guess how many athletes there are in the NBA? That does not make you an NBA player. That does not make you a rotation player. I am rooting for him. I want him to get the job. I think he can turn into a very solid NBA player. He's not there yet. I mean, struggling in the preseason, what do you think is going to happen against real NBA teams? Let Kai Jones develop and progress. Don't put these ridiculous expectations on him. Please. Just let him make the team and get reps in the G League this season and get some run in the NBA. Some. But some of you guys, I don't know if you know what you're looking at with a player. Wow. I guess it got me on a rant. Appreciate everybody in here, even Quentin Cornett, who called me an idiot. You know I missed a receipt, right? Probably won't forget that one. Evil Bot says, Quentin trash Cornett. Don't ever disrespect our host if you don't want to end up in a dumpster. Bastion Schweinsteiger said, Kai Jones not even on a two-way deal, yet he already locked up the backup center spot. Goat life. Now, he's kidding. And I appreciate that stuff. If you guys want to say Kai Jones is the GOAT and the next MJ and all this, I know you're kidding. And it's fun. And it's fun to watch young guys and get to see and hope and predict what they can be. I'm just telling you what he is so far. And it's a guy who isn't comfortable out there enough, who needs to find who he is and his identity as an NBA player. He has some physical tools that can translate to this level. He's not close to putting it all together. The game's moving too fast. And I am in his corner. Again, I want him to get that two-way spot. I want the Clippers to stash him in the G League, get him reps, because it's not going to help him to be on the back of the bench in the NBA not playing. He needs to play. He needs to get reps, repetition, 10,000 hours, whatever. Caleb Bergeson says Kai Jones should dye his hair blue and red, Clippers colors. That'd be dope, except he has shaved his head. So you haven't seen him recently. Like he dyed his hair teal when he was with Charlotte. I love the young man. I'm gonna play some audio of Kai Jones. This is how much I like. I'm gonna give you guys this. This was post game Tuesday night. Not only was he recovering from an ankle injury, I didn't know this. He was recovering from a hammy issue. And I love how earnest he is with his explanation and how kind he is with the media. Like, I'm rooting for the guy hard. He has completely won me over in his, small tenure. You can't even call it a tenure. In his limited time so far as a Clipper. Just listen to Kai Jones here talk with Justin Rousseau, Probs.
Trust your body more. Is it more of a mental thing?
Yeah, for sure. Like, when you come, because I sprained my ankle, you know what I'm saying? And then I had a hamstring strain. So dealing with both of those at the same time, just getting used to and running it, like really sprinting hard. You know what I'm saying? Like really getting out there. Because you can sprint and you can stride out, but then as a track athlete, you know, like you can really turn it on and go full speed. So just trusting my body to go like to that full speed, push out as hard as I can, and trusting that it will hold up, like the work is going to pay off. That's why the conditioning was so important that we were doing in the fall, just getting a lot of sprinting. So I just really want to sprint hard and be strong and play strong. So yeah.
He's talking about where he's at physically because there was a big setback with the ankle and the hamstring injury, and he wasn't able to go in the summer league, and that would have been big for him. Big for him. Ray says this. Hey, Adam, I tagged you on Instagram asking that you interview LOL WTF Eric on the podcast. I had just something I've wanted to do. He did my background here. It's the least I could do. He seems like a dope super fan and artist. Yes. Shout out LOL WTF Eric. We'll make that happen at some point. But man, I just love the energy. He's talking about his wind. It's just, you can tell he wants this, guys. He wants this, and he's excited about the opportunity. And I'm hoping, it sounds like, Mo Bamba likely not playing tomorrow night. He's going to get another 20-plus minutes likely against the Portland Trail Blazers. For more on that one, check out the Patriot AM 1150. We'll have pregame for you at 6:30. I will also be on here with your pregame show on Clippers Talk. We'll be showing it off on the video side live at Clippers Talk on YouTube for that Clippers ball game, preseason game number 3 up in Seattle. Got to show him love. Got to give him some basketball. Got to show Jay Crossover love. He's the Seattle guy. Love the Seattle guys. Going to see some legends tomorrow night. Maybe Detlef Schrempf will be there. Maybe Gary Payton, Sean Kemp, all the guys in NBA Jam. Give me Hershey Hawkins. Okay. So I'm out of here until then on Clippers Talk. But check out yesterday's episode with Law Murray. Check out the Clippers Talk After Dark with Carlo Jimenez as we're driving home from San Diego to LA. And then I think we'll have a Clips and Dip later tonight with myself and Chuck Mockler. But appreciate you guys. And if you didn't hear the beginning of this episode, a little bit of an investigation on where Kawhi could be at and what the prospects of him playing in Game 1, October 23rd, are based upon what we've heard about his knee. Last one, Bastian Schweinsteiger said, would you donate a kidney for a Clippers championship this season, Mr. Osland? I'll answer that on the next episode. How about that for a tease? I got to go. Appreciate you guys. Talk soon. This has been another episode of Clippers Talk. Hit the sub button for me, please. We'll talk to you tomorrow night.